The Dearborn Independent, January 22, 1921, number 13. Mr. Ford's page. All the sober thoughts you have had recently are true thoughts. The watchers told many things last spring that the people did not believe, and now they have come upon us. If prosperity consists in thoughtless extravagance and a wild orgy of profiteering all along the line, we are better off without that kind of prosperity. It is not enriching financially, and it is impoverishing morally. That is over now. The hand of economic retribution has descended suddenly, and under its shadow millions of people who have no consciousness of affairs beyond their own pleasure are now thinking soberly. Their thoughts will do them good. But that hand has not descended as crushingly as it might. It is just a warning. It will be lifted again, and we shall all be more sensible for having seen it. There is nothing more condemnably mean than the habit of saying, everything is all right, when everything is not all right, or the habit of saying, this is only a temporary flurry, when it is not a temporary flurry. The curse of false optimism. Ever since the day when someone said that a certain period of business uncertainty was a psychological condition, there has been a belief that the way to deal with economic disturbances was just to smile and ignore them. The newspapers try to do this. Directly the business thermometer goes down, the cartoonists and editorialists get on the job of graphic camouflage until the hard, cold facts begin to force their way to the front on the news pages. No one is thought worth quoting who does not prophesy roseate times for all. The sound business prophet who tells the homely truth is not welcomed. It is becoming a national weakness with us that we shrink from unpleasant truths. Granting that a great deal of harm can be done by calamity howling and that there really is a psychological element to be considered at all times, it is nevertheless a greater thing to face the facts at their minimum of pleasantness, face the truth at its coldest, and build on that. This is what Americans dislike to do. The weakness is not only American, of course, it is human. Governments know all about it. No government dares to trust its people with the truth at all times. During the war, the American people were treated in this respect just as the others were. Some truths were not entrusted to us for fear that, receiving them as a people and thinking of them all at once, we could not bear them. Now, the purpose of this page is not to make out that things are bad. It may be said at once that things are not nearly as bad as they might be, and they are soon going to be better than they now are. But there has been a narrow squeak. Conditions would be much worse if certain parties had their way. There are some people who rejoice to throw a country into helplessness, but this is a country which cannot very easily be handled that way. If we are to become wise and be able to do our part in restoring and maintaining healthful conditions, we must face a few facts. There are a goodly number of people in this country who ought to begin this moment and use their memories. They ought to recall the counsel that was given to them last spring. But more important than even that, they ought to recall how they took that counsel. Some who thus call upon their memories will recall that the most reputable bankers of the country forewarned the people months ago, almost a year ago, of what was likely to come, and bade them get ready. But that warning was largely unheeded. Why? Because for years there has been an assiduous campaign waged by voice and print to discredit the counsel of bankers. Why? In order that the public might sometime plunge headlong into disaster. And why wish the public to meet disaster? Because there is a class of people whose times of prosperity are other people's times of adversity. There are, of course, bankers and bankers. But there are white bankers whose business is to assist business, and there are other bankers, falsely so named, whose business it is to mulct business of all it can. The former will come out clean from a very severe scrutiny of their conduct during the period in which this present period of slackness has been incubating. They did advise the people rightly. They did take such means as would safeguard the people's real interests in the approaching storm. And they have maintained themselves in a position to be of assistance in restoring activities. Credit where credit is due. When bankers advise thrift, they are looking to the soundness of the community. Of course, all the money that is spent eventually finds its way in the natural course of business into and out of the bank. The banker handles just as much money one way as the other. But with a thrifty people, while business may not be so full and flashy, it is sounder, and the banker's whole mission, if he be true to his profession, is to promote soundness. Now, that advice was sound. It was given by sound men, but it was not largely taken. Some did take it, to be sure. Many more did not. They were led along by the interests whose only business is to get the money, perfectly indifferent as to whether getting the money spelled prosperity or stringency for the community at large. If the advice was not taken then, maybe a bit of counsel may be heeded now, inasmuch as all of us have had time to think. And this is the counsel. The advice given last spring when the present slackness was foreseen is just as wise and practical when the slackness begins to pass away. One objective of personal management ought always to be this: enough laid aside for a month's layoff, a 2 months voluntary or involuntary idleness, enough to constitute a margin of time for a man to turn around. We may say what we will of the high cost of living, there are few families that would not acknowledge, upon thinking about it, that they did not make the best use of the period of high wages. Many did, to be sure, and they are reaping the benefit of it now. But many did not, and they are able now to see how they might have done so. The point is this: the people were educated to a point where they distrusted the men who knew best of all what the economic signs portended. People believe the doctor and the meteorologist. It is just as sensible to believe honest and informed men when they speak about the signs of the times. These men will usually be found to be among the white groups. This in no wise whitewashes the wrongs that exist. It means only this: as long as we live under a system where such things occur, it is wise to avoid as much of the trouble as possible. And this must always be true. No system can ever be devised that will be so perfect as to shield us from the legitimate results of our own extravagance, idleness, or waste. Work will never be abolished. Limited means will never be abolished, because unlimited means is simply an impossibility. Division of toil will never be abolished. There are certain things which we have now, which we shall always have, and it is time we were getting ready to live with the fact about these things. We have been flirting too much with dreams and illusions. We have invited all the influences which deal in pride, contempt, and discontent to make us their prey. Family life has allowed itself to be remodeled on what is without, rather than on the natural basis of domestic relations. We lived on the streets too much. The clothing trades caught us in their nets, making $5 neckties and $10 shirts almost a necessity for the young fellow who wanted to keep up, until it came to pass that many a boy invested more on his feet than he did on his head. A man is worth what he carries in his head, and in that respect, many of our young fellows were bankrupt long before the slack period came. There has been a great return to common sense. The regrettable part is that the condition included many who did not personally need the lesson. It is to be hoped that memory will remain active for a long time to come. If you must fling money away, wait until you are not earning any, then spend your surplus. Don't live up to the margin every week. A man is rich only to the extent that he can survive difficult times. And this right to survival he buys bit by industry and business views of spending during the easy times. We are ready to blame this and that, but if we knew how much we ourselves as ordinary individuals contributed to the whole wrong situation, we should blame ourselves.